On today's Babel, why you may need a scan converter, and why in the future you won't.
This is Tech No Babble, your weekly source for church video and graphics news, perspectives, tips, and tricks. And now here's your host, Paul Clifford.
Hi, and welcome again to another episode of Tech No Babble. This is the show where every week we talk about using video and graphic design in the church. My name is Paul Allen Clifford. I'm your host. I'd love for you to join the conversation and leave your questions and comments, so just do that below the video. If you're listening to the audio, no problem. Just drop me a line, paul@trinitydigitalmedia.com, or go over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/contact. And there you can find all my contact information, or just leave your comment there as well. So I was looking around the office, as I sometimes do, trying to come up with topics, and I saw this. This is an Avrikey iMicro scan converter. Now, this was a staple in using computer signals in video for years, but it's no longer as important. But there are still churches, because churches tend to be slow on upgrades and all, that probably are looking for a solution like this, so I thought that I would mention it. A scan converter takes a computer signal and converts it down to standard definition television. So, as it turns out, computer resolution increased much faster than television did. So, this scan converter, for example, I'm looking at the box here, will display up to 1280 by 1024. So not quite 1080p, not wide enough to be 1080p, and not tall enough either. So it's got most of the vertical resolution to be 720, but not enough width. But it doesn't take it in and put it out as it is. No, it gets rid of a lot of information. So if you're in a situation where you're connecting your computer to a standard definition television, chances are you need a scan converter. The computer will probably not output a low enough resolution signal for you to show it on the television. So that's why you would do that. But as I said in the intro, in the future you probably won't need to do that. And the reason that you won't is because of the HDTV revolution. So right now, for most people, if you go into your living room, you'll find that you have a high definition television. Maybe not everyone does, but a lot of people do. In fact, we're getting to the point where people are starting to upgrade their HD TVs because they want something better, they want something bigger, etc. And so used ones are actually becoming easier and easier to find. So, if you go into your living room, you'll find that you have an HD TV, quite possibly, and you can most likely connect your computer in a couple of different ways, either with HDMI, which is fine over short distances, DVI, or VGA. So any of those connections, or perhaps all of them, would be available on your HD TV. So hooking up your computer is probably fairly trivial. You just need the appropriate cable and the appropriate adapter. But in the old days, or if your system is still standard definition and you want to do the same thing, you need a scan converter. So the reason that you would use one of those today is if you have a standard definition television system. Maybe your church does IMAG, does image magnification, but your video system is standard definition. Well, in order to get your video signal into your switcher, you'll need to scan convert it down. If it's the case that right now what you're doing is when you're showing videos, you're switching over to the video input on your projector. When you're switching to a computer, then you're switching over to a television, to the computer input. You can eliminate that by going down in resolution with a scan converter and a standard definition television switcher, video switcher as it is. I want to caution you against doing this though, because standard definition, because it has lower resolution, text particularly can get very hard to read. Quick story, I was doing some freelancing at a certain sporting event in my home state of Kentucky, where people wear hats called derbies, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I was freelancing there, and they've got a huge 4K screen. Huge. It's probably 100 feet wide. I mean, huge. On the far side of the track, so a good distance from where I was in one of the buildings. And I had a standard definition television maybe 18 inches from me. The standard definition television, sometimes I had trouble reading some of the text that they put on it. The 4K display, which was apparently the same size as the television because it was much farther away from me, I had no trouble reading the text on it because it had a much higher resolution. So even though it was farther away, higher resolution farther away can sometimes be more legible than lower resolution closer to you. So I want to caution you that using a scan converter, that may not be the best option for you. It's probably better to go for higher resolution if you can, but it's also possible that you just don't have that choice. So if you're looking for a way to get a signal, in this case a VGA signal, from your computer into a standard definition television system, or a standard definition video switcher, look at a scan converter. And in the future, happily, you won't have to make that choice. Hope that helped you, and I hope that you'll use that information as you and your church are going out and changing eternity. If you like this content, you'll probably like my email newsletter, which is free. So head on over to trinitydigitalmedia.com/gifts, GIFTS, and there I've got some free church tech gifts for you and a free subscription to my email newsletter. So choose your gift, get your free subscription to the email newsletter, and you'll hear all sorts of tips and tricks and some of the new things I'm doing here at trinitydigitalmedia.com. Until next time, this is Paul Allen Clifford with trinitydigitalmedia.com.